All right, question 241. This is part 5 of the Software Development Fundamentals Exam Code 98-361 review. So, hotspot. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. A queue's items are stored in order they were added. Yes. A queue is a first in, first out data structure. Yes. A queue has a limited number of items. No. It's unlimited. Question 242. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. Unit testing is the final set of tests that must be completed before a feature or product can be considered finished. Select the correct answer. B, user acceptance. So, user acceptance is the correct answer. Question 243. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. To minimize the amount of storage used on the hard drive by an application that generates many small files, you should make the partition as small as possible. The answer is C, block size. So to minimize the amount of storage used on the hard drive by an application that generates, you should make block size. Question 244. You run into the following code. What is the value of result when the code has completed? B, 10. So in this code, we see that as an integer, A is 10, B is 20, C is 30, and the result is 0 starting out. And the condition is if A is less than or equal to B or C is greater than A, then the result is 10. And since 10 is less than or equal to 20 or C greater than A, both of them are true, then the very first condition is going to pass. And that will be the result. Question 245. All objects in .NET inherit from which item? A, a reference type. Question 246. Hotspot. You are reviewing the following class that is used to manage the results of a 5K race. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. And here are the answers. You can only set the player's ranking once. Yes. If you call the match name method, the code will throw an exception. Yes. You can change key from player to racer. No. Question 247. You create an object of type A number. The class is defined as follows. What is the value of the number after the code is executed? The answer is D, 7. Let's look at the code real quick. So we have a number class, and it has a number integer that's first assigned to 3, and then a new doesn't do anything, and then the new with the number assigned is assigned to number. So basically you have two constructors, empty parameters, a parameterless constructor and an integer constructor. And and it looks like the code executed is a number with a 7, and so that's the reason why the answer is 7. Question 248. You have a class with a property. You need to ensure that consumers of the class can write to the value of the property. Which keyword should you use? A, add. No. You need to definitely set. If you want consumers to write to the value, you do a set. So that would be C. You are designing a Windows Store application. You need to design the application so that users can share content by connecting 2 or more devices by physically tapping the device together. Which user experience guideline for a Windows Store application should you use? A, share and data exchange. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. The bubble sort algorithm steps through the list to be sorted, comparing adjacent items and swapping them. If they are in the wrong order, they get swapped. So the answer is A, no change is needed. Question 251. Which 2 types of information should you include in an effective test case? Choose 2. A and B. Any precondition necessary to test the case and the expected result from testing the case. Question 252. You are developing a web page that enables students to manage races. The web page will display 2 lists, past races and upcoming races. The page also contains a sidebar with contact information and a panel with social media settings that can be edited. Race results can be shared on social media. How many components will be on the web page? C, 4. Question 253. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. A table whose attributes depend only on the primary key must be at least second normal form. A, no changes needed. Question 254. You have a table named items with the following fields: ID, which is integer primary key, auto-generated, description, and completed. You need to insert the following data into the table: cheese, false. Which statement should you use? So it says insert into items, description, completed, values, cheese, and 1. Okay, that's right.
Mommy, guess what?
Which 3 are valid SQL keywords? A, C, and E. Get, select, and where. Question 256. You run the following code. What will the value of the variable I result be? The answer is C, 3. Question 257. Hotspot. For each of the following statements, select yes if the selection is true. Otherwise, select no. The is a relationship between classes refers to composition? No. The has a relationship between classes refers to inheritance? No. Both composition and inheritance allow you to create sub-objects? Yes. Question 258. The dog class and the cat class inherit from animal class. The animal class includes breathe method and speak method. If the speak method is called from an object of type dog, the result is bark. If the speak method is called from the object of type cat, the result is a meow. Which term is used to describe the object-oriented concept? The answer is D, data hiding. I would have said polymorphism. Okay. Question 259. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. Converting a value type to a reference type in an object is called boxing. The answer is A, no changes needed. Which service can host an ASP.NET application? B, Internet Information Service. Question 261, hotspot. You open the Internet Information Services 7.5 Manager console as shown in the following exhibit. You need to examine the current configuration of the server W200 2008 R2. Use the drop-down menu to select the answer choice that answers each question. Okay, so you have how many sites are configured on the server? You have 1. How many applications are configured on the server? You have 5. Question 262, hotspot. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So, XHTML attribute names must be in uppercase? No. XHTML attribute values must be in quotation marks? Yes. XHTML attribute minimization is forbidden? Yes. All right. Question 263. You have a website that includes a form for username and password. You need to ensure that users enter their username and password. The validation must work in all browsers. Where should you put the validation control? Question is A, in the web.config file. Okay. Question 264. You plan to create an application for your company. The application will run automated routines and write the results to a text-based log file. Little or no user interaction is required. Security requirements on the host computer prevent you from running applications on startup, and users must be able to see the status easily on the screen. The host computer also have limited memory and monitors that display only 2 colors. These computers will have no network connectivity. Which type of application should you use for this environment? Solutions A, Windows Store app. Question 265. Which 3 items are benefits of encapsulation? Choose 3. A, B, and C. Restricted access, flexibility, and maintainability. Question 266. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. When a base class declares a method as virtual, the method is hidden from implementation by a derived class. Answer is B, can be overridden with its own implementation by a derived class. Question 267, hotspot. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. Each correct selection is worth 1 point. Within an XHTML document, the XHTML doc type declaration is mandatory. Yes. Within an XHTML document, the XML namespace attribute in the HTML tag is mandatory. Yes. Within an XHTML document, the HTML head, title, and body tags are mandatory. Yes. Question 268. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. The response.redirect method is used to transfer processing of the current page to a new page and then return processing back to the calling page once processing of the new page has completed. Select the correct answer if the underlying text does not make the statement correct, or select no change is needed if the underlying text makes the statement correct. The answer is C, server.execute method. Question 269. You have a Microsoft ASP.NET web application. You need to store a value that can be shared across users on the server. Which type of state management should you use? A, session. Question 270. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. The process of transforming compiled C code into an XML string for a web service is known as deserialization. It is B, serialization, not deserialization. Question 271. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. A data dictionary that describes the structure of a database is called metadata. The answer is A, no changes needed. Question 272. You are reviewing a design for a database. A portion of this design is shown in the exhibit. Note that you may choose to view either the crow's foot notation or Shen notation version of the design. To view the crow's foot notation, click Exhibit A. To view the Shen notation, click Exhibit B. Which term is used to describe the relationship between customer and order? Solution is D, one-to-one. Question 273. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. To improve performance, an SQL select statement should use indexes. Select the correct answer if the underlying text does not make the statement correct. Select no changes needed if the underlying text makes the statement correct. The answer is A, no change needed. Question 274. You are building a web application that enables international exchange students to schedule phone calls with their prospective schools. The application allows students to indicate a preferred date and time for phone calls. Student may indicate no preferred time by leaving the date and time field blank. The application must support multiple time zones. Which data type should you use to record the student's preferred date and time? The option is C, SByte. Question 275, and final question for this review. Hotspot. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. So the primary goal of unit testing is to take the smallest piece of testable software in the application, isolate it from the remainder of the code, and determine whether it behaves exactly as expected. Yes. In unit testing, each unit is tested separately before integrating the units into modules to test the interface between modules. Yes. The driver that you use in unit testing simulates a calling unit, and the stub simulates a called unit. Yes. And this concludes the review.